Hello and welcome to the Daily Manchester United. Today it's a very special episode because we went on an away day to the Daily Liverpool Podcast, also part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. Now it's a very special episode and there was such good conversation we've had to cut this episode into two because the guys talked about so much. So a big thank you to Louie and Jesse for hosting us. We're all going to hear the voices of Sam and Tom from the podcast. I'm just here to give you a little bit of an intro into today's one. Of course, we couldn't bring you these episodes without our partners at Zencastr, so a big thank you to them for sponsoring us here at the Global Sports Podcast Network and the Daily Manchester United. With the intro out of the way, let's dive in and I'll hand you over to Louie from the Daily Liverpool Podcast.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, you are listening to the Daily Liverpool and Daily Manchester United podcasts brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Louis Easton and joining me from the Liverpool team is Mr. Jesse Sarwar, the familiar face. How's it going, mate?
Very good, very good. I'm just so glad that the international break is over and we can start, focusing on proper football.
Yeah, exactly. Although I will say there's not enough Liverpool players in the England team at the moment, so there's even less reason to be excited to watch England. Curtis Jones needs some justice, man. Joining me from the Daily Manchester United team, Sam Brady. Sam, what football team do you support?
Funny you should ask that. I support Manchester United, mate.
Well, that is a shame. Tom Cairns, what football team do you support?
I have to be on the side of Sam. It is Manchester United myself.
I was hoping to catch you out there. But these two have had the unfortunate, in recent years, I think it's fair to say, duty of watching Manchester United. And this is the one I think we all look forward to when the calendar is announced at the start of the season. Liverpool versus Manchester United, the biggest match historically in English football, I think a lot of us will say. Sam, your memories of watching Liverpool versus Manchester United growing up?
Normally very enjoyable, to be honest. Obviously, recent years, I can't say the same, apart from maybe last season. There's as you said, there's not a fixture. That this is the sort of the fixture you look at the start of the season and you go, when is it? And you make a note of it in your diary. And yeah, it's the biggest game of the season, really, and yeah, I fear the worst on Sunday, I have to say, away at Anfield, but you never know with this United team. It comes up with many surprises every now and then. So yeah, great, good memories, bad memories, but it's always a good watch.
Jesse, the same question goes to you. You know, when you were growing up, it was different eras that you saw through the years as well, obviously. But what are your earliest memories of watching this derby?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit older than you guys, so some of my earliest memories, you might not have been born, but I think that the thing about this fixture, as Sam has said, this is the one. This is the big one. You know, it doesn't matter, who's in the ascendancy or which other clubs are doing well, whether it's Manchester City sometimes or it's Chelsea or Arsenal. The one that we look for is Manchester United. And I'm sure that's the same for Manchester United fans as well. I remember Alex Ferguson saying the same thing. It's the first fixture that he looks for, even when it was Arsenal that, were challenging for the title, or Chelsea. Liverpool's the one. And for us, it's Manchester United. And so, yeah, I mean, the memories have been good ones, bad ones. And it's a bit of a cliche when you say that, form book goes out the window. But it really is true with Liverpool, Manchester United. And I know Sam said that he's a bit worried about, the team coming to Anfield, in the kind of form that they are. Honestly, Liverpool fans are worried as well, because there really is no kind of form guide in this fixture. When Manchester United were, winning everything in the 90s and in the kind of the 2000s, the early 2000s, we had a string of results. We'd go there, Danny Murphy would get a goal. And so it doesn't really matter who's really, really doing well. This is a one-off fixture. And I think it's really important for both clubs for different reasons that we get a positive result.
Tom, with you, obviously there are some situations you may think about throughout history, whether that's the 96 FA Cup final, when we all turned up wearing our cream suits and, less said about that match, the better. Or maybe the 2009 matches where Torres would terrorise Vidic. I mean, you still ended up winning the league, so I'm guessing you won't feel as sour about that. But, I mean, throughout history, there have been some great memories for you as Manchester United fans. Which one would stand out to you?
It's a very good question. I mean, I even remember Rio Ferdinand's late winner in 2006. I think it was Giggs that provided the free kick and Ferdinand got a head on it right on the 90-minute mark, like exactly 90 minutes when that ball went in. And obviously there was the Gary Neville celebration in front of the Liverpool fans, which I think in the heat of the moment, you couldn't help but see him do that because it meant that much to him. But I think that emphasises the rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester United, even to this day where, it is Liverpool who have the better form compared to United in recent years. But when it comes to this fixture, the form book goes out the window. In regards to other memories, I still remember the 3-0 in 2008 where Wes Brown got a header in, who had a really, really stellar season, actually, did Wes Brown. And then obviously Ronaldo, and that strike from outside the penalty area from Nani was just sublime. So those were the early moments, or some of the early moments growing up seeing Manchester United. And also Dimitar Berbatov, the hat-trick from Berbatov against Liverpool, where we won 3-2, particularly the bicycle kick, which was a very cute bicycle kick by Berbatov standards. That's another one of which that sticks with me. And of course, there's the bad moments for us, which I won't go into too much detail on.
I don't remember any of those wins. I don't remember any of those wins. I doubt very much it's true. I think we'll have to Google it afterwards.
Yeah, I don't
who's this Berbatov character? I've never heard of him.
What about Jesse, let's focus on some of the good ones. What about that 03 League Cup final? Dudek in goal for the penalties. Gerrard not quite taking his shirt half off so he could try and get away with it. But that was one of the more fond ones.
It was, yeah. And it was a good period. Under Gerard Houllier, we were a really kind of a difficult team to beat. It was a really kind of a solid team. They weren't the most kind of attractive team to watch, but they were really solid, and that's why we went to Old Trafford a few times. We got a 1-0 result. Danny Murphy would normally score. So yeah, that was a good period, and that League Cup final was obviously one of those.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question to the United boys first. This is one that I like to do whenever I'm hosting a crossover. It's pick one player from the opposite team that you would love to have at United for this instance. I know it's quite a difficult one to talk about when it's your most bitter rivals. But I'm interested to see who you guys pick. Tom, I'll go to you first.
Alexis McAllister.
That's a very respectable pick. Why McAllister in particular?
I like how he drives the ball and holds the ball up whenever he has it. And he's never afraid to take a shot himself when the likes of Salah and Gakpo are kind of pocketed. But when they're both pocketed on the wings, you leave the middle of the park sort of exposed so that McAllister has all the space and all the time in the world to get the shot away. If he was still at Brighton, I wouldn't have blamed United trying to go for him. But of course, that changed obviously in 2022, I believe. McAllister went to, or was it 23 that McAllister went to? Was it 23? Yeah, he was still at Brighton when he won the World Cup, didn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd be the one I'd go for.
Yeah, especially since he scored a penalty against you in the last minute. That was
yeah.
Yeah, right when he was about to sign for us as well, so we liked him more for that. Sam, your pick.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard to just pick one, considering I think probably 10 out of the 11 would probably get into the United squad right now. But look, I mean, there's the obvious choices. I think the obvious one for me would be Van Dijk, obviously. I think we need a really solid centre-back there. I think I spoke about it on our episode yesterday, but I feel like all our centre-backs at the minute are all kind of the same level, if not worse. They're all 7 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s on a good day, whereas we need a real leader, a real world-class centre-back to sort of lead them all.
Would you be saying the same if Lisandro Martinez was available?
Yeah, I'd still say the same. I think I mentioned Lisandro yesterday, and I think he's about the same level. I think he's a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 on a good day. We need consistent leaders, and we, to be honest, we do need one centre back who is the next level, who can take us to that next level. I think we've all got centre backs. De Ligt, very decent centre back. Yoro, decent centre back. Martinez, decent. But none of them are above decent, I would say. So that's the obvious one. And then I'd say maybe the less obvious one, even though he's been outstanding, I think, especially last year, is Gravenberch. I mean, we need a holding midfielder. We're screaming out for one. Obviously, Casemiro can't cut it anymore. Agate is rubbish. So, yeah, Gravenberch, why not whack him in there? So I've given you 2, but I could have given you about 10 there. So.
Well, that's very kind of you. Jesse, same question goes to you on the flip side. Maybe people would probably be leaning towards Bruno Fernandes, or would you say something different?
No, not Fernandes. I'd go for either. The thing is, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but we know that obviously Liverpool at the moment, in terms of just the quality of their squad, is obviously far, far better than Manchester United's at the moment. And so you're really struggling to find a player who would get into the first 11. And so you're looking at players who could add something in terms of a squad. So there really isn't anyone that I would take from the Manchester United team into the first 11. There really isn't. I can't think. I mean, where do you look? Goalkeeper, the fullback. So Sam said, he made actually really good point about the centre-back situation at Manchester United, which I really 100% agree with, is that Manchester United actually, if you look on paper, they've got some good defenders. De Ligt is not a joke. He's a very, very good defender. But they don't have that standout player that can just lead that back line, so that when they're struggling, when their backs are against the wall, they all just look to that one player. Manchester United used to have those players. Whether it's a Rio Ferdinand or a Vidic, if he wasn't playing against Torres, or even further back, likes of Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce was not the most talented or the most technically gifted centre-back. But my God, you're not getting anything past him just because of his sheer will, his sheer presence. And I think that's what Manchester United are really crying out for. But in terms of the players that I would pick, I'd say Ahmad. I know this is going to sound really weird, especially after I said that none of these players would get into the Liverpool 11. But I think Mason Mount, that there is a player there in Mason Mount. I think he's been desperately unlucky with injuries. I really do. I think he's been really, really unlucky.
I agree.
With injuries, because I think at Chelsea, I remember there were rumours that Liverpool were in for him as well, potentially. They were in for him alongside Manchester United. And, for whatever reason, whether it was Liverpool pulled the plug or he just opted for Manchester United, I think that in a really good functioning midfield, I think he's a very, very good player. And if you just look at the midfielders that we've had in recent times, then they're not they're not world beaters individually. Jordan Henderson, Wijnaldum, these guys, functional midfielders, and I think Mason Mount in that kind of midfield, a really hardworking midfield, intense midfield, I think Mason Mount will be absolutely fantastic, but it's his fitness that is an issue. So if you leave him out, then I'd say Ahmad would be the one that I would take.
Jesse, sorry. Can I ask why not Bruno Fernandes? Because if I'm looking at your squad in terms of that number 10 position, I think he's a better player than Szoboszlai, and I also think at the minute he's a better player than Wirtz. So what's the reasoning behind it?
Firstly, I think this is probably the most important reason, is I utterly detest him. Okay. I'd be worried that if he walked into into Anfield and he bumped into one of the stewards, he'd hold his face and roll around on the floor and do himself another injury, and he's out for about 2-3 weeks. So that's my major concern there. The other one is that I don't think he's better than Szoboszlai. I genuinely don't. I think that don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player. Technically, he's a fantastic player. But I think that he is a fantastic player in a very average team. I think if he comes to Liverpool, there's no way he's captain. He's not captain material.
No way.
And he's not a starter. He's a rotating player. Szoboszlai sometimes doesn't start. That's what happens when you're an elite level football club. There are very few starters. Even at Liverpool, Salah, Van Dijk, the rest of them, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, the fullbacks, Alexander Isak will be the same. They're going to be in and out of the team according to what our needs are at a certain stage of the season. But I think that certainly for what we need as a team, I don't think that I would take Bruno Fernandes at his age. I don't think the intensity is there. If you compare him to Szoboszlai, my God, I mean, the whistle blows and he's still running. He's still running, and I think that in the modern game, that is just so important that you have to have one of those players in your midfield. And I don't think Bruno Fernandes, as talented as he is, joking aside, he is an extremely talented player. But I don't think that I would put him above any of those players in our midfield.
And also, Szoboszlai has probably been our best player all season. And honestly, this new version of Szoboszlai, we've seen him go to right back. It's almost like seeing a little bit of Gerrard in him, because you just get the feeling with him that he will be put anywhere in the squad and he will put out a 10 out of 10 performance for us at the minute. And his long-range passing and his set pieces as well, he offers so much. Plus, he is captain material as well, I think. In 5 years' time, he could become captain of Liverpool if he wanted to. And, even for Hungary, we saw in the international break, he got a last-minute equaliser against, was it Portugal, I think? Or I could be wrong. But, yeah, he is the one I want at the moment at our number 10 position, just while Wirtz gets a bit more adjusted. And I think we have got an incredible player in Wirtz as well.
Sorry, not to labour on this point about Bruno Fernandes. One of the other reasons I wouldn't take him above someone like Szoboszlai or anyone else in our midfield is I just, in terms of his attitude and his temperament, I don't think he'd be a fit for Liverpool. I really don't. I think that he'd. No, I think as soon as someone does a misplaced pass and he's throwing his arms up in the air, forget it. He's it's just not something that you see Liverpool players doing, and that kind of attitude. And that's why the rivalry aside, he's not a captain. I think he's the worst possible captain for a Manchester United team who are trying to find
is twitching
their feet. No, really, genuinely. Look. Liverpool, Manchester United. Look, do I hate Manchester United? 100%. Do I love it when they lose? 100%. And it's the same for Manchester United fans. But I'll tell you something about Liverpool, Manchester United as well, which I don't share with Manchester City or Chelsea, is that we have 100% respect for Manchester United, because Manchester United's success was built on what they achieved on the pitch, just like Liverpool. Manchester United weren't a joke team, and then all of a sudden, they strike oil. And they're suddenly a fantastic team with 115 charges under them. Manchester United are a proper football club, and if you look at the captains that Manchester United have had, Roy Keane, Brian Robson. I mean, these guys were. Brian Robson, one of the few players growing up who I thought, you know what, I want him in the Liverpool team. But I just think someone like Bruno Fernandes, I think, is a disgrace to that armband. I really do, and I think that I would give it to Mason Mount ahead of Bruno Fernandes, just in terms of attitude, not just because he's a better player. Your best player isn't always your best captain.
Sam, do you agree with that take about Bruno as a captain?
I was going to say, I mean, I'll try and convince you. I don't think I'll be able to, but yeah, obviously I disagree, to be honest, because I think the first point you make in terms of you detest him as his personality and whatever, I think that gets thrown at him a lot by football fans. But at the same time, that's a personal reason. So that's nothing again. And you did make the point in terms of he's a world-class player and things. But at the same time, you would love him for your team if he was in your team. It's like those types of players, like the Rudigers of the world, those types of players who, okay, if you're a rival opposition, you hate them against you because they do all the dirty tactics and dive and whatever.
A bit like Suarez was
like
for
Suarez.
us.
Yeah,
Suarez.
like Suarez. But if he plays for your team, you love him. And in terms of the captaincy, okay, there have been moments, admittedly, where he hasn't acted in the best way. But at the same time, if you're the best player in that team by some way, by the way, in terms of ability, you're looking around and you're going, who's helping me, lads? I need a bit of help. And then when you look around, of course you're going to get annoyed. Of course you're going to expect more from your team, and you're the captain, and you have to set an example. And my God, on the pitch, he's setting an example in terms of what he's doing with goals and assists. I mean, he is world class. Let's not get this mistaken. He is a world class number 10 wherever you want to play him, and he's been playing out of position, by the way, in the past. Probably, well, last season he played half in the right position, half not. And this season he's playing way out of position. And you don't see him publicly moaning about it, whatever. He's just getting on with it. And he's the one player who is consistently putting up amazing performances. The one player. You cannot say that. I'm trying to think. No, you literally can't say that about any other player. Ahmad maybe gets a bit of grace, but even he puts in a few stinkers every now and then. Bruno is consistently class. And in terms of like whether he would get into, don't get me wrong, I don't know if he would sort of fit your system and fit, as you said, Jesse, the intensity. And I don't know if Bruno can put up with that intensity. But in terms of pure ability, he probably gets into every side, I would say, in the Premier League in terms of that number 10 position right now. I mean, even the Cities and the Arsenals, I put Bruno in their team. And yeah, you might say that's crazy, that's biased, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people go, oh, not Bruno, purely just based off his attitude. But if he was your captain,
he is a good
you'd
player.
love him, I think. Yeah. So, and obviously he wouldn't be captain at Liverpool because you've got Van Dijk and even probably Alisson in terms of
Robertson.
Yeah, in terms of that leadership, I guess. Bradley. But you have options. But I mean, my God, I mean, for a struggling, considering we are literally in our worst time in our history in the Premier League, we've got a player here who, by the way, could have left a couple of seasons ago. Saudi came in for him, and he said no, and he wanted to stick it out. And I truly believe that he's going to stay with United for years and years and until his end of his career, to be honest, because I truly believe he loves the club. He loves everything about United, and we love him. And look, rival fans can say whatever you want about him, but he's ours, so...
Well, I'll tell you something, because just moving on from Bruno now, because we have been talking about him for ages now.
Yeah, please.
But there is one player, because you made the point about him being one of your, like, the only player who's been consistently good for you. I'm going to throw a little name in the ring here, because every time I've watched him for you guys, he's genuinely impressed me, and this is my pick for who I'd have from your side. Noussair Mazraoui. I think he's been good at right back. I think he's been, good on the ball, not making any mistakes, at least from what I've seen. And our fullback positions are maybe the ones that have been struggling recently because, let's face it, Jesse, Frimpong's just not a natural right back. He's a wing back. He likes to get forward. And he plays further forward for the Netherlands as well. Bradley's been struggling, and our best player at right back this season has been Dominic Szoboszlai whenever he's gone there. I mean, that performance against Arsenal, incredible. And I think while United do play with a back five and the wing backs that like to go forward, I think Mazraoui is very capable of just playing as a traditional right back. And I know he's probably not going to play against us because he's got his injury issues, but I think I mean, I don't know, Tom, if you disagree with this about Mazraoui, but I think every time I've seen him, he's been genuinely good.
I think it's been great as well as Mazraoui. One of the few last season I thought actually put in a decent shift on the most occasions. I think the one setback I would say with him was what happened in the Europa League final when he failed to close down Sarr when he put in that ball in for Johnson to get a tail on it. And that was the decisive moment on that night in Bilbao. But yeah, I would agree with Mazraoui. I think he is a talented wing back. I think the right wing back role suits him. He does like to get forward, like Ahmad does, and we need that in the system that's there. Going back to I know we said about the Bruno Fernandes, we've come away from him. What I'll ask. Let me just ask Jesse and Louie about this, because what separates Bruno Fernandes to someone like Roy Keane as a skipper?
Attitude.
Yeah,
that's the first thing, and that's where I disagree with Sam. Like fundamentally, is that being a top player, it's not just about technical ability. There are loads of players littered throughout Premier League history who had just unbelievable technical ability, and yet they didn't achieve what they could have achieved, right? And so I think Bruno Fernandes, technically fantastic player, attitude, I think. Yes, you can say that he's improved his attitude as in the last season or two as captain. But I think that's because he is, as Sam said, head and shoulders the best player. And I just don't think that translates to when you come to Liverpool, because he's not going to be head and shoulders the best player. He's going to be one of just a bunch of midfield players. And I'm not sure whether he's then got the character and the personality to affect our team, positively. Then you do see that Bruno Fernandes who just waves his arms up in the air with every stray pass. I just don't like his. It's not just the diving. The diving sickens me, but it's just the attitude that he's got when he
it's the professionalism,
as a footballer,
isn't it?
His professionalism. I think the one that we all remember, and he's petulant. So when he's losing, and you can say that, look, that's a good thing. You don't want to be a good loser, okay? But I remember when United got battered at Anfield, and he just let the man run past him, and he just gave up, and he put his arms up in the air, and just your typical kind of Bruno Fernandes. That would not wash at Liverpool at all.
No way.
Just in terms of the players around him. You mentioned McAllister. McAllister's not having that at all. He's not having that. Van Dijk's not having that. And that's for that reason I don't think he's a player that would do anything for us. Given that he's got great technical ability, but that's just not the only thing that makes a top footballer.
Sorry, but then I was going to say, but then Jesse, who's captain at United? If it's not Bruno,
yeah, no, you got a fair point. You got a fair point, because they are in such a situation that they're in the situation where they have to give the captaincy to their best player. If their best player was their left back, if Luke Shaw was the best player on the pitch, he would be captain, right? So they are in a particular predicament. I concede that point 100%. That you don't have. I tell you something. If Scott McTominay, I know people are going to laugh, but if he stayed at Manchester United, he's for me is captain material. Your best player. We had Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson was by no means was he the best player on the pitch, but he was our best captain. And I look at someone like Scott McTominay as someone who could have been a very, very good captain at Manchester United if he was given the backing, if he was given the tools around him to succeed.
And I also think it's the fact that he was given the captain's armband off Harry Maguire when Maguire was struggling. I think it was just a bad thing internally for the club. It's sort of like punishing a player for being bad. Sort of thing. It's like, oh, he's a good player, let's just whack it on him and then problem solved. It doesn't work like that. And that's you asked the question about Roy Keane. I don't know enough about Roy Keane because I wasn't there to watch him, but I'd say I was there to watch Jordan Henderson during lockdown for Liverpool, barking around the pitch, encouraging everyone, and even just he's one of these players that you would want to come on while we're losing and make sure no one switches off as well. I don't think Bruno's that sort of player. I think he's a terrific player, but to galvanize a group, Tom, I'm sure you can agree. Like, he's just not that sort of player.
Well, with Bruno Fernandes, there's very few players at United right now that be a solid captain, and Bruno Fernandes is probably the best that we've got. But we need basically an anchor type player. We need like a Vincent Kompany or a Fernandinho type defensive midfielder stroke centre half that can lead that back line. And when players are acting out of character, that's when the skipper has to tell them, said, look, the club won't wash that if you continue acting like you are on the pitch. And
I think you're crying out for a Michael Carrick at the moment.
Well, even if we had Michael Carrick, it wouldn't do us any harm. I wouldn't. If Michael Carrick came back to the dugout, even if it's just like for an interim role, he would basically add what he would have been able to do when he was at United as a player.
Yeah.
That's something I think that's what's missing in the backroom staff as well. It's not just what we see on the pitch, it's also on the bench.
As an assistant, you mean? Or would you want to get rid of Amorim?
Well, that's the next question, isn't it? I suppose you were going to ask both me and Sam. He's come under fire a lot this season. I can't remember if I said this on the last podcast I said when I was, I think it was after the Brentford game, shortly after the Brentford game. If we had lost that game to Sunderland, I thought that would be that for him. He probably would have seen out the remaining games of October, because I think there's a thing in his contract where if he was dismissed within the first 12 months of his job, United would have needed to have paid off something like £12 million in compensation because they fired him from the position prematurely. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they went into November and sacked him then, the compensation that they've had to have paid for Ruben Amorim to leave would have been less. So that is why he's probably still in the job right now. Mind you, we could go to Anfield and completely shock everyone and catch people out, because that's what happened last season. I mean, when we went to Anfield in January, we were on a barren run of form. You know, we lost to Newcastle, we lost to Wolves. I can't remember who else we lost to on the run-up to that, but we lost two very big games, really, before we headed to Anfield, when everyone thought that United were going to be on the wrong end of a job-in. It was pouncing it down with snow as well, and there was a thing or two about the match being called off. Mm-hmm. And United fans were even wanting that. But the downside of that happening is, you know, if that was put back to the end of April or something like that, and we ended up playing you, and that was the game for you to win in order to win the league, that would have made it a whole lot worse. So I'm glad that we had that game going ahead and obviously put in one of our best performances of last season.
You nearly won it as well.
Yeah, we should have won it, because Maguire totally bottled it when the ball came to him from a good distance.
But let's be fair, Tom, that was an absolute miracle we got a draw. And that in my opinion, and look, I know I got a lot of stick from Kieran yesterday for being a negative Nancy, but in my opinion, that's not going to happen. It's just not. I mean, and I always say, as bad as, if I know how bad we can be in recent months and last year, and if it comes anywhere close to that, we're getting battered. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. On the Amorim point, look, I like the bloke. He's a decent bloke. I would go out with a pint for him, but he's got to go. I mean, he's got.
Do you think he's got to go?
Yeah, he's got. Wow. In my opinion, he has to go. I mean, and as I said, I love the bloke. He's such an honest guy. He seems like a really nice guy. Like, I wish him all the best, but he's so stubborn in playing this style of play when we don't have the players to play him. Yeah. He's going to die on his own sword, and you just can't. At the top level, you have to adapt as a manager. Mm. Okay, you can have your style of play and go into games thinking, okay, we're going to set up three at the back, blah, blah, blah. But when the game unfolds, you have to be able to adapt. And especially when you know you don't have the players to play your system. So you're playing players out of position. You're playing Bruno in the number 8. You're bringing on Mount playing as sort of a left wing back type. You're swapping your two centre backs every game. Like, in my opinion, he looks a bit out of his depth now. And as I said, I love the guy. He's an honest guy, but it's nearly been a year now, and we've seen no progress, literally no progress at all. So how can you justify him staying in the job? And you really want me to sit here and say, oh, let's sack another manager? That's the last thing I want to do, because I like Dolly, I like Ten Hag, I like Ruben, I like all these guys. And as I said, I could probably go to the pub with these guys and have a good chat. But as managing my football club, I'm sorry. Just
I've got to say, I take everything that Sam's saying. Is that in terms of his inflexibility, I think at this level you've got to show that you can adapt, especially when your team's not doing well. It's you can be stubborn when you're winning, right? You can be stubborn. I'm not changing. You lose a couple of games, I'm not changing. But if you're in where Manchester United are, you've got to show a bit more adaptability. But I've got to say, I do have sympathy for him, because when he first came in, apparently he turned Manchester United down and said, look, I want to start at the start of the season next season, at the very start of the season, have a good pre-season, and then we'll go from there. And United just said to him, look, take it or leave it. If you don't take it now, we're going to give it to someone else. And I think what happened then was that he's come into a club where the rot has already set in terms of with that team. And there wasn't really much he could do with that team, given that there was none of his players. And so then you're already on a downer. You're already losing games. You're already in a bad position in the Premier League. And yes, I know that it's the start of a new season, but the pressure's already there now. And I just think that if he had started at the start of the season, I think it would have given him a much better chance, because I really do think that he's a really talented young manager. And I think he's got a fantastic personality, like Sam said, which is really important when you're leading a big club. You've got to go into that dressing room and you've got to have a bit of a personality about you, where players who, they're not that much younger than you. He's a young guy. They've got to respect you. And I think Amorim had that, but I think that that's going quickly now. And it's really difficult to see how he's going to pull this back.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say just off that point, I fully agree with you, Jesse. To be honest, there is a big part of me actually, because as I said, I like the guy, that feels bad for him, because our club is broken throughout, through the top to the bottom. And I feel bad because he's come in and had to sort of deal with all everything that's going on off the pitch. But then I look at him and go, help yourself out on the pitch. He doesn't help himself out by being so stubborn and playing players out of position and all of this. So I'm like, you can only control what you can control, right? You're the manager, so everything that's going on, you might not have the players to play your system, and that might not be your fault. But the club have backed you in the summer when they said they weren't going to, when they said they were running out of money. So you've got some players in. Don't get me wrong, we need a lot more players, but you've got some players in. This season was the season to go, you know what, forget about last season, let's really kick on. But there's been literally no progress since last season. It's just a continuation of last year. So when you look at it and go, what can we do? You've left us with no other option than, yeah, we've got problems all over the club, but you're not helping yourself. We're not getting results. So what can we do here? So that's why I'm like, look, I like the guy, but just I need to see progress from him.
Well, who would you bring in? Like every single time you brought in a new manager, you're just back to the same thing.
Yeah.
We saw it with Ollie, we've seen it with Ten Hag, and now we're seeing it with Amorim. And it's just, there's no progress over the years getting new managers either. So
Yeah.
I think this is the time where you've got a genuinely very good manager who's stubborn in their approach. And, he's still got you to a Europa League final last season. And, you've won 3 games this season. That's better than the form you were in last season when you were averaging a point a game or whatever it was. So I think you need to just stick with him for a bit longer. And I said this about Ten Hag as well. I never think you should have sacked Ten Hag, because he won you 3 domestic trophies, unless I'm mistaken. So was it 2? It was 2. But my point stands. That's a manager who still has success with a very awful club, and I still am stunned at what happened to him over with Leverkusen, where he was sacked after a month or whatever it was. Maybe you could go back to him.
But
I don't know.
I think the reason Almorin, to be honest, the main reason why Almorin is still in a job is because our owners don't want to admit to another fault almost. So it's almost like because we've hired and then sacked and hired and sacked and hired and sacked, they're almost sitting there going, we should probably do the same with this guy, but we're going to look like mugs again. And that is I think the main reason why Almorin's still there, because if that's any other manager like Ten Hag or Ole or whoever, they're probably gone, to be honest. And on your point in terms of who do we get, that's another reason why Almorin's still probably in a job, because we've tried nice guy Ole, we've tried Mourinho, who ruffles a few feathers, we've tried Ten Hag, we've tried Van Gaal. We've tried so many different managers from all different backgrounds, and not one of them has worked. So now we're trying Almorin, and it's not looking like it's working. I mean, Roy Keane, I saw last week, said he would like to see Simeone in there, which, to be honest, I wouldn't mind Simeone. Bit of Simeone chaos on the touchline. Why not for a bit?
God, Simeone and
I'd also
Bruno
like to
would
see
just be
Xavi, Xavi, obviously he had his stint at Barcelona, did really well for Barcelona.
I can't see that happening.
I'd like to see that as well. But yeah, anyone really but Almorin at the minute, to be honest.
Jim Radcliffe kind of intimated that he wants to give Amorim time, right? He wants to see him see out his contract at least, right? Which, do you not think that? I know you've just said that that they're not sacking him because they don't want to look stupid, and I'm sure that there's an element of that. But I think there's also the fact that they've got to do something different, and the different that think that they've got to do is not sack someone after 18 months. Is to say, right, you know what, we're going to give you the 3 years, okay? And because it can't be any worse, right? You're sacking managers after 18 months, and the team is still kind of mid-table. They're not challenging, and so how much worse can it get? You never know, but how much worse can it get if you just say to Amorim, "Look, you know what? We're gonna give you that 3 years."
But the thing is, if it's okay, 3 years, fine. His first year, we finished 15th, was it last year?
I reckon the club have said to him, just forget about the first year.
But you can't really forget about the first year, because if he's got 3 years in his job, like Radcliffe's saying, you've got first year and 15th. This year, we're on track for a bottom half finish, probably. And then in his third year, we're probably, if you've got 2 out of 3 years finishing the bottom half, likelihood is third year we're probably going to finish in bottom half again. And if we're 3 years Manchester United finishing in the bottom half of the Premier League, what have our standards come to? Really, what have our standards?
But that's the club you are at the moment. I'm sorry to say it, but that's who
what
you
have
are
our
now.
standards as a club come to, where we go, you know what, we're not going to sack you as a manager. We're going to give you a contract, even though you're finishing 3 years bottom half of the Prem. Like, come on, what are we doing here?
With the squad that you have, I'm sorry to say it, but that's the team you are, because you've kind of been left behind now. Everyone's advanced. Everyone's built on this squad rather than just signing players based on how they're doing at other clubs, whether or not they'll be good in this system, and just hoping it works, hoping it gels. And if not, try a new manager. It's not how it works. And your clubs, you need to look at what's actually happening in the internal of the club, the board, who they're signing, and not just basing it on how they're doing at Ajax, let's say, for example, with Anthony, and then paying them 200 grand a week. Same with Sancho. That's just who you are now. So it's not down to the management. And that's why I think you've got a genuinely good manager with Ruben Amorim. That's who we tried to get before we went for Arne Slot. And,
it's interesting that you say that, though, Louis, because we didn't try to get him. He was on a shortlist, right? He was on a shortlist, and apparently the reason...
We did try to get him.
No, he was on a shortlist, but we didn't try. We didn't make an offer. So he was on a shortlist, and the reason that we didn't move forward to making an offer to him was that the recruitment team flagged that if we bring Amorim in, and they said, look, he ticks a lot of the boxes, but if we bring him in, it's a radical tactical departure from Jurgen Klopp, and that you've got to do that all the way through the levels of the club. And they just said it was too risky to go from a Jurgen Klopp style to Amorim, and that the safer option, the one that's got more synergy, is Arne Slot. What a sliding doors moment, right? What a sliding doors moment that, he goes to Manchester United, and it actually plays out that his tactics are such a radical departure from Ten Hag. It's just like you're just going from one extreme to another, and it's really difficult.
But this is the thing, Jesse, with United managers in the past. You have been going from one extreme to the other. Mourinho, Van Gaal, Ole, Ten Hag, they all play different styles of football. Yeah. They all want to bring in their own players. And then you bring in a manager, he tries to implement his style, he brings in his own players, and then you sack that manager. So that means you bring in a new manager with the old manager's players. So it's just a reoccurring thing. And I mean, of course, you guys want us to keep Almorin anyway.
It's not even about that. It's just, I think, if you're going to be...
It is really.
For me, genuinely, it isn't, because it doesn't matter to me which manager you get in, because your club will always just sign the biggest, most attractive names that are open in the market, whether or not they're a fit for your club, and just hope it works. And when it doesn't, they'll blame the manager. We've seen it time and time again. So I don't care about Amorim, but I'm just saying there's no point in sacking him and giving him, 12 million in compensation to sack him, and then just have someone else who will have the exact same effect on the club. So no, it's not about that at all. Anyway, I think it's time to take a break, because we are 46 minutes in, and we will talk more about Liverpool up next.
Did I or did I not tell you that they talked about a lot, didn't they? It was a great episode, a great chat, and a great host from the Daily Liverpool. Of course, the second part of this will be available later on in the week, so make sure you do look out for it as well. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias at gspnmanunited. We are on TikTok, we're on Twitter and X, we're on Facebook, and of course we're on Instagram. Don't forget, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, to leave us a 5-star rating. If you think we deserve it, I think I'm biased, but I think you should. But also, don't forget, you can watch all of our episodes over on YouTube at GSPN Daily Man United Podcast. It's such a long name, so you have to remember it. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you for part 2 later on this week. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, and we'll speak to you soon.